and Jordan in the authorizer board office building via teleconference in accordance with state law code section 25-41-5. The notice of this meeting was posted prior to the meeting in accordance with the state law. The audio recording of the meeting will be made available online and minutes of the meeting will be recorded. Moving to the announcement of the quorum, as I am, please state present and your location. Ms. Willis?
Present. Carrollton.
Ms. Whittier?
Jennifer Whittier, present, Brookhaven.
Ms. Cook?
Jean Cook, present, Clinton, Mississippi.
Ms. Remack?
I'm present and I'm in Olive Branch.
Mr. Baker?
Present in Brandon.
And has Mr. Hinton signed in yet? Mr. Hinton, are you here yet? We'll go ahead and.
I am here, present, Hattiesburg.
Okay, thank you. And I'm Bill Billingsley. We have 7 members here. We have a quorum. And the monthly board meeting is hereby called to order. We're going to start with the pledge and an invocation. There's a brand new set of flags in the boardroom. So if you don't have one in your where you can look, I'm going to ask Dr. K, do you mind leading the pledge so we'll be able to see your screen and we can all look at the flag?
I'm happy to.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance,
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, if everyone would bow your heads, I'll lead the invocation. Lord, thank you for bringing us together again today to try to do the work of the children of Mississippi. Please bless our efforts that we may do everything in the best interest of the kids and to do everything that will glorify you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? I think that it's been out for a while. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda for today's meeting?
I so move.
Thank you. A second? Is there a second?
Second, Jean Cook.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries and the agenda is adopted. Now we take a look at the minutes for March 8th regular monthly meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved, Jean Cook.
Thank you. Is there a second?
There is. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it and the minutes are adopted as written. Move on to the chair report. I don't have anything to report except to welcome my friend Mark Baker to the board. He is a former state legislator and a very good guy, and I'm glad to have him. He was confirmed last month and is able to be here today. I know he's going to bring a lot to our work, and so welcome, Mark. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
And okay, executive director report, Dr. K.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Billingsley. One thing I'd just like to make a quick comment, kind of a housekeeping thing. If you guys are not speaking, if you would leave yourselves on mute, getting feedback from somewhere. So if you don't mind muting yourself, that'll eliminate some of that feedback and ensure everybody can hear. So echoing some of Mr. Billingsley's comments already. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to our guests. Welcome to our board members. Thank you again for your time and for your commitment, and a special welcome to Mr. Baker as well. The first thing I'd like to do today on my report is just to draw your attention to the newsletter that's in the board packet. You will recall, those of you that were here last month, that I shared this update with you. but I felt like maybe including it in your packet would be a nice way for you guys to keep up with what's going on, whether it's related to upcoming trainings, opportunities, spotlighting our schools, or what have you. So just hope that'll be a nice little addition to your packet each month, and you can enjoy seeing what we're sharing as well as what's happening in some of our schools. The next thing I'd like to say is I've thought a lot about my report over the past year or so, and after our work session in December, I thought it might be really important to take the report and align my comments to our strategic priorities, because I think it's really important that we stay on mission, that we stay on purpose, that we respect our vision, that we respect our goals, and that everything we do is aligned to those goals so that we are meeting the intent, the purpose of the authorizer board. And so if you will indulge me during my, my reports, I will try to at least give you an idea of what the report information is about and how it relates to that strategic priority. So to begin with, strategic priority 1 for the authorizer is just an effort to expand access to high quality schools, especially in needs of high areas of high need. And so with that, I want to give you an update on our 2021 call for quality schools. The application cycle is ongoing, as you well know. That kicked off in January. It is an extensive process. It will run about 9 months. And on March the 26th, we held our eligible applicant webinar. It was well attended. We have a total now of 6 applicants who are eligible to complete the entire application. There are 5 new schools and 1 existing operator in that 6. And for the first time, they're located in different parts, really. I mean, we have 1 school in Greenwood, we have the 1 school in Clarksdale, but these are kind of expanding out into different places, which is really exciting. So 1 for Natchez Adams, 1 for North Bolivar, 1 in the Columbus area, 1 in Greenville, and then another 1 in Jackson. So we are excited about the ongoing application process and looking forward to receiving those full applications in May. Also aligned to strategic priority, and in this case, strategic priority 3, is our commitment to ongoing professional development. That's really for staff here. And so Jordan and I actually attended the first in a series of community conversations with NACSA. That was during April, and this particular community conversation was related to school renewals during COVID. So we were able to engage with our peers from across the country. We talked through opportunities, we talked through challenges that are all related to school renewals. We have 4 sessions following, so each month there will be another community conversation. This month, next month is on new schools, and then we'll pick up with financial planning, oversight, equity, and special education through August. So those are really beneficial because you're with like-minded people, peers, authorizers, and people who have had experience as school leaders, and people who have had experience running CMOs or EMOs. And it's been a really, really beneficial, I think, conversation to engage in. And so I'm appreciative of NACSA putting together those opportunities for us as authorizers. Additionally, we attended a training with the National Charter School Resource Center, and this training was on serving students with disabilities and ensuring equity. As you well know, that's a critical piece of the work we do, is ensuring that all of our children who do have disabilities, that they are provided with the best possible educational experience that they can have. And the emphasis on equity and inclusion is critical. And so we'll continue to circle back to that conversation and find out best practices, opportunities that we can learn from other authorizers and take and put into place here, so that we can, 1, support our schools, and 2, certainly ensure the children have a high quality educational opportunity. Updates that are related to the charter school program, and for context, for those of you who have not been here, the authorizer board received back in 2017 a charter school program grant in the amount of $15 million. That grant is basically for technical assistance and to ensure that our new schools have access to startup monies during their planning year, and then again in year 2 and year 3 of their operations. So it's critical. It's for new schools in particular that don't have a lot of operational dollars in their first year or their planning year prior to serving children. It offers a lot to those schools. And right now we have 4 schools participating in the subgrantee process. And then we will have 2 or 1 additional school if the board makes some approvals today. So you'll have that during the agenda under the action items today. But related to that, we have our CSP monitoring coming up in May, and I think I alluded to that last month as well. We have a 5-member team from WestEd, from I think from the Manhattan Institute and some other places that will actually conduct this visit. It will be a virtual visit, but it will be extensive. It will begin on May the 10th and end at the end of the week. Jordan and I will spend hours, they've already told us hours in interviews, so 3 to 5 hours worth of interviews. And we've been working diligently to put together all the documentation to ensure that we have a really solid review. Now, having said that, I'm sure there will be areas of improvement, as there always are, with a comprehensive review like that. But we are putting together the best possible package of evidence and documents and supporting documents that we possibly can to provide to those technical assistance team members who will be our monitors. With the monitoring visit, also there is a real emphasis on fiscal responsibility. And so with that, and knowing that we've had changes here at the authorizer and changes out in the schools in terms of who is monitoring the fiscal aspects of the charter school program grant, I asked our fiscal agent, Cornerstone Consulting, to do a really, really deep dive into all of our CSP claims. I wanted to ensure prior to the visit, and even if we weren't even having a visit, I think it was really important to do that in light of some of the other changes that have happened, but to ensure that we weren't having any duplicative payments, that we weren't having payments that were missing documentation, whether it was sign-in sheets or invoices or an unallowable expenditure that may require a repayment. So Denise and her team are working diligently to complete that review. I wouldn't call it a forensic audit, but it is a very extensive deep dive into every single payment, every single claim that we have paid through the federal program grant since the beginning of these payments and the grant itself. So the only other thing related to the CSP then is that the annual report has been submitted. It was submitted on time, actually before it was due. And then we've submitted our data collection summary sheet to WestEd as well, which is a kind of a companion piece to the annual report. And then finally, with my report, I was extremely honored just recently to get an invitation from the National Association of Charter School Authorizers, which you guys have heard me refer to as NACSA. They reached out to me and asked me to participate in developing some training videos for a neighboring charter resource center. They noted in their invitation to me that hearing from a peer authorizer that had invested a lot of time and resources into improving our practice would be a really nice way to frame this for other authorizers, just local state areas. And we talked about a lot of different things during that interview. There was a series of questions that they asked related to things like our mission and our vision and our goals, and how do we get buy-in from board members, and how do we get buy-in from the community and so forth. But two of the really, of the areas that really stood out to me are areas that I want to bring to your attention just as food for thought going forward, because I think they were so compelling to me in terms of, and thought provoking, that I think it would be nice for the board to just kind of sit on that and think about how you feel with respect to these two areas and how that brings about your sense of value as it relates to the work that we do. So the very first question was around offering students and families quality or choice, or quality and choice. And those are two very different things. So if you think about, are we offering our families quality, or are we offering them choice? Or are we offering our families and our children quality and choice? And so I have my own philosophical thoughts on what that needs to look like, but I will be reaching back out to you guys to kind of get a sense of where you're coming from and what your thoughts are, so that we can, again, to build on what we started back in December when we started our work session and we started really building out more to our strategic priorities and about our values and where we sit as an authorizer and as a community. So that's one area. The other area was about the charter bargain. So autonomy versus in exchange for accountability. So less autonomy for accountability. I'll get it straight. So the question was, how do you balance the school's autonomy while holding them accountable over the course of their charter term? And that's incredibly relevant to the work that we do. And how does that performance variation impact the balance? One, I would say our schools do have a significant amount of autonomy. They have autonomy over their finances, over their personnel, who they hire, over their school model. The code section 372845 also says that charter schools in Mississippi are not subject to any rule, regulation, policy, or procedure that's adopted by the State Board of Education or MDE unless it's otherwise stated in their contract, in their charter contract. And I would say that schools are exempt from about 30% of our state accountability process standards. Now, we know they're accountable to the state accountability model with respect to student achievement, but there are about 30-ish, 35 maybe process standards that they are not accountable to. So that speaks to their autonomy. But thinking about that charter bargain, what does that mean to you as a board in finding that balance, because it can be tricky. So I just wanted to put that out there for your food for thought, and I will circle back to you. And as we come back to where we were in December, then we'll put some final meat on the bones on where we are in terms of our values and what we're about, really. So, and that ends my report.
Thank you. I had myself muted. I appreciate those remarks. Does anyone have any questions or would like further explanation? I would only ask about the deep dive that they're doing on the financial things. Is that something that we are paying for separately, or is that part of what we've already contracted with them for?
Part of our contract.
Okay, good. That's because that's a lot of work. I wouldn't want to think that we were having to pay for that separately. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, then we'll move on to the financial report. Denise, are you here?
I am, and I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, everybody's following the rules and muting themselves, so I appreciate that.
Sure. There's not much to report on the financial side this month. I do want to point out that when you look at those financial statements that were prepared, the budget has been revised. And so the numbers that are reflected are what y'all approved at your last board meeting. So you will see a slight change in the actual budget. I did note this morning when I was looking over this that we forgot to change the description for the salaries under the federal salary portion. it still reflects that it's 50% of this director of schools salary. So we'll make a change on that for the next board meeting to show that it's part of Dr. Carmacheria's salary that's now being charged to the federal grant. The expenses reported are just for the month of March, and there weren't many expenses during that month, so there's not that much at all to report. The biggest thing that I do want to report is the legislative action that was taken in our final budget appropriation. I do want you to know that Dr. Carmacheria spent a lot of time working with the legislature, trying to make some changes in the budget. She spent hours on conference weekend up at the Capitol trying to get in to see different people and try to get the budget updated. But it was unsuccessful. I think there was some things going on inside of the IHL budget that prohibited us from making much leeway this time. So we ended up still being inside of IHL's appropriation at the same level that we were in FY21. So the general fund appropriation will be $229,890, and we have the $500,000 in the special fund report. Dr. Carmacheria and I will meet before the next board meeting to set up an internal budget on how to use those funds for our FY22, and we'll present that at the June 14th board meeting. And I think that concludes my report, unless y'all have questions for me.
Okay, thank you very much. The legislative action, and I'm sure Mr. Baker can echo this, but to not have our budget reduced is probably a pretty good deal. We can't always count on getting an increase because that's just not the way the legislature does their budgets. So I'm glad that the efforts that you made at least kept us from taking much of a cut, if any at all. So thank you for that, and we'll get them again next year.
I will say, Mr. Billingsley, I will say that our original appropriation was $250,000. And then a few years back, there was a reduction when all state agencies were reduced by about 3%. And then we got an additional deduction maybe a year later. So we are down from our original allocation of $250 to $229,890. So that's fairly significant for a small state agency.
It is, and we'll work hard to get it back next year.
I appreciate that. The other thing I might ask Ms. Denise, if you have any other comment about the report, maybe an update on when we can expect those reports for the schools.
We're hoping to have that report for the schools by the end of the week. As Mr. Billingsley said, it's very in-depth review that has taken considerable time and effort. But I am pleased with the results, and I will tell you that we had a really high-level meeting with all of the schools and received some good feedback, and that we'll include that as a subsequent event as part of the report, and some of that we've learned will change some of what we're writing. So, but hopefully by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the financial report? If not, let's move on to the committee reports. Dr. Carmacheria, could you lead us through this, please?
I will be happy to. Our first committee report will be provided by Ms. Remack on the bylaw committee.
Okay, so if you will look in the board packet under new business action item A, the appointed ad hoc committee has reviewed Article 8, Sections 8.1 and 8.2 of the bylaws and determined a need for minor edits in the current language regarding public testimony and the submission of data views and other arguments. And so the edits were reviewed and those were approved. And if you'll look in your packet, I'd like for us to vote on those today.
Okay, I think that everybody take a look. If you have any questions about what the bylaw committee has done, you can go ahead and ask them. The vote will be delayed until we get to the action items further down the agenda. Does anyone have any questions of any of the any of the bylaw committee revisions? Okay. Let's move on. Application committee.
Good afternoon. My report is relatively short. The application committee has had an opportunity to review documents related to the renewal of Smilo Prep and the modified application for Revive Prep, both Republic schools. The committee has considered the expert evaluator's recommendation provided in the draft renewal recommendation and the response to the report from Republic schools and the modified application for Revive Prep, including an update on each component. And those components are the educational program and educational program design and capacity, as well as the operations plan and capacity. The board will consider action on both of these items during new business.
Thank you. Any questions? Let's move on to the Performance and Accountability Committee.
That will be Miss Whittier, and I think she has an introduction for us.
Yes, I do. Are Aaron and Anna with us?
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Okay, hi. I'd like to welcome and introduce Aaron Marwa and Anna Nicotera from Basis Policy Research, and they are leading our work on the revision of the performance framework. And we're happy to have them give our presentation today. Thank you both for being here.
Great, thank you so very much, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for welcoming us to today's meeting. I'll just show a deck here. Okay, can folks see our cover slide okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So Anna and I are joining you all today to share a little bit more about our process to revise the performance framework and the intervention ladder for the board. For folks who may not be familiar with who we are, so we're part of Basis Policy Research. We are an independent research firm specializing in applied research, primarily in K through 12 education. So we work with folks really all up and down the education sector. So we work with authorizers, state departments of education, districts, and also individual schools as well. So our areas of expertise really lie in performance measurement, which the performance framework is really a keystone of that work. And we also do a lot of work with benchmarking, program evaluation, research design, survey work, and data analysis. So a little bit about us. I'm very pleased to introduce my colleague, Dr. Anna Nicotera. Anna, if you want to say a quick hello to folks.
Yes, thank you so much for having us today. We're really thrilled to talk about this work. At Basis, I lead our school choice and charter school research, and we do quite a bit of work, like Erin said, with school districts and departments of ed. We also work with the Walton Foundation and help them with their strategic planning and measurement around school choice issues. I previously was the research director for the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, which was the national advocacy group for charter schools.
Great, thank you, Anna. Hello to everyone. Again, I'm Erin Marwa. I'm a senior associate here. I am leading the stakeholder engagement piece of this work and also supporting Anna with the data analysis for the performance framework. In a past life, I actually worked for NACSA and was involved with the authorizer evaluation process that the board went through about a year ago. So very familiar with the practices and policies of the board and the Mississippi charter landscape. So really happy to just continue and build on that work and continue to engage with you all. So a little bit about this work. what Anna and I have been working on is a revision to the performance framework as a whole. So that includes both the academic, organizational, and financial sections of the framework. And then paired with that, we'll also be revising the intervention ladder policy to pair with the performance framework as well. So for our process, we've been engaging in robust stakeholder engagement. So we started this work back in January and have been speaking with school leaders, community leaders, working closely with staff, as well as the performance and accountability committee folks to really make this robust and meaningful in terms of getting you all set up with tools that will be long lasting. Anna and I have also been doing a lot of data analysis. So looking at historical performance data, financial data, and organizational data to make sure the framework truly speaks to your context. And ultimately, what we will be doing is doing a lot of alignment across the framework. So making sure indicators and measures are in line with national standards, that they're in line with your law, and also best practices. So our guiding criteria for any changes that we make to your performance management tools are really grounded in four pillars, which are here on the screen. So you can see research motivated, measurable, stakeholder agreement, and then alignment. So to provide folks with a quick status update of where we are in this work, we started back in January at the start of the year, and we kicked off that work with virtual stakeholder interviews. So as I mentioned, we spoke with folks across the community to really get us set up with an understanding of the challenges of the performance framework tools and also what's working well. February, we featured work on the academic performance framework and paired that with our first stakeholder meeting. In March, we moved on to the financial framework, also paired with a stakeholder meeting. And then now in April, we are, I guess, in the home stretch of the project. So we're focused on revisions to the organizational framework specifically. We are holding our last stakeholder meeting on that piece of the framework next week. And then we'll be wrapping up the work with the intervention ladder revisions, with the ultimate goal of having really all of those tools put together ready for adoption by the end of April, early May for the board. So throughout the process, we've worked with many different stakeholders and really looked to different parties to take on different roles and responsibilities as we move through this work, which is really will become the centerpiece of your decision making going forward as an authorizing body. So we consider you all as the board to be truly a collaborative partner in this work, as well as the ultimate decision maker. And then for the performance and accountability committee folks, Anna and I will be working with folks on this committee to work through some key decisions and make some recommendations to the board. And then for our stakeholders, we've really looked to them as our local context experts and collaborative partners as well. And then a quick note on our engagement with the performance and accountability committee folks. We will be working with them closely on kind of two key buckets of decisions. So one will relate to some of the content of the performance framework itself. So specifically content that is related to the board's authorizing mission and values. So for example, things like how certain measures might be weighted and what kind of importance the board wants to give to certain measures. And then also for things like defining the bar for, what does it mean to meet expectations on a certain measure. And then we'll also be providing some support and helping committee members think through how to implement the new performance framework. So what does that rollout look like over the next couple of years? Are there any questions that Anna and I can answer for folks about our process or about the work to date? Great. Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciated being able to share our work with you all.
Can I just say, Anna and Aaron both have been just delightful to work with. And I know they've worked diligently. This has been kind of a short runway for getting a really big project done and completed. And they have worked diligently to ensure that we are on track and that we are making progress and we are making collective and individual decisions based on best practices and recommendations from the field. And so I appreciate you both, and I appreciate your time and attention to detail and your support for the work that we're doing here.
I agree. I think that it's important that we keep our eye on this, and it's really kind of a constant project to make sure that we are doing these frameworks the best we can. So I appreciate the work that not only you all are doing, but also Dr. Carmen and Jordan. The work that you all are doing at the staff level is just as important as any of it. So thank you too. Are there any other questions of any of the committee reports? Okay, let's move on to the public comment section. We have a number of people that have signed up for public comments today. And I appreciate that. This is they're all here to discuss the same issue from varying perspectives. The only thing I would advise all of you is to keep your comments to 5 minutes. That's our rule. Public comments stay to 5 minutes. I would also like to ask you to stay with the subject that you've said you want to talk about. We don't normally allow people to wander into a different area from what they've asked to comment about. And the final thing is, there are a lot of people that are on the list to comment, and as the board chair, I'm going to reserve the right to either reduce the amount of time from the comments, or to reduce, or to call for a stop to the comments altogether if they become simply repetitive. The next person is saying the same thing as the previous person did. I want this comment period to be productive, and I want us to learn as much as we can from the commenters. But I'd like to do that in an efficient way where we don't just simply say the same thing 14 times. So, and also I would remind everyone that this is a comment period. It's not a hearing. The only time hearings are called for in the contract renewal is when the committee has recommended not to renew the contract. That's not the case here. So this will be a comment period where everyone will be allowed to make their comments. There will be no questions and answers either way. No board members can ask questions, and none of the commenters will be able to ask questions. We'll just go ahead and make the comments, and then we'll move on. With all that understood, if the comments, I'm assuming you all would like to go in the order that you're listed on the agenda. If that's the case, then Victoria Gilbert, go ahead.
That was initially the case. Some people had to step away. So I think maybe Jordan Montgomery might be the person that should start, unless Kedra Thomas or Nikki Weathersby are on.
Okay, Katie, I see you're down for last. I will not stop it before you get your shot, but if you wouldn't mind deciding who's going to speak where, then we won't have to worry about it. I'll let you call on the speakers. Would that be okay?
That would be great.
So
Ms. Weathersby, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we'll have you go.
Oh, okay. I want to speak as a parent at Smilo Prep, as a parent of a Smilo Prep graduate, just to say that they were very integral in I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay, actually, sorry. Can Jordan start? I think that may be the best way to go, and I apologize. Yes.
That's fine.
Jordan
Thank
Montgomery.
you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Montgomery. I am a current 5th grade literacy teacher here at Smilo Prep. I just wanted to comment on the perspective of a teacher, obviously, and someone who's been here for the past 3 years. When looking at Smilo, compared to a lot of schools around us, I think of growth. I think of the possibilities that can be, especially when it comes from scholars who we know have come from the public schools around us, who parents have come to me as a teacher saying, hey, my scholar or my student has never seen this much growth. My student normally struggles to read. My scholar struggles to make friends. My scholar struggles to fit in and make progress, and was potentially held back in other areas. And coming to Smilo Prep, it's been completely different, especially for a lot of the 5th graders that I currently teach. I've heard from parents say, especially from kids who may come in with IEPs or need support, hey, my scholar has completely turned it around. I haven't seen A's and B's on their report cards ever. But the supports that you all have provided here at Smilo Prep have made it such a contrast to what I've seen before, and which is part of the reason why I've decided to stay for so long. I initially came in as a TFA teacher, and some of the beautiful things that I've seen within education and within scholars of color here at Smilo have been what have prompted me to stay for as long as I have, and now move into a leadership position so I continue to make the impact that I have at Smilo Prep. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the consideration of continuing to allow us to do the work that we do here.
Okay, next.
Patrick, your turn.
When I think about Smilo Prep, first of all, I'm Patrick Edmonds, Smilo Prep assistant principal. Started here as a 7th grade math teacher and then an 8th grade math teacher. When I think about Smilo Prep, a lot of things come to mind. But most important, Smilo Prep has restored the confidence in public school education for our parents, and has been a pillar of equity and inclusion for most of them. When I think about Kaylee Simone Rankins, who came to us with a learning disability, she was reading on the 3rd grade level in 7th grade. Her mother, Kamika Rankins, she wanted her daughter to have a better education, and she knew that she deserved that. Kaylee left here not only on grade level, but as our SGA president, top 10 scholar, National Honor Society vice president, cheerleader captain, and that's just a few things to name. But now she has a 4.0 at one of the top high schools in Memphis, Tennessee. Smilo Prep has also shined light on those in the background. When I think about our parent, Margaret Williams, who had twins here, one was Michael and one was Michelle. Michelle was also reading on the 5th grade level. Guided reading intervention, skill grouping, helped Michelle meet her needs and find her confidence. And her mother saw that light shine in Michelle, and as a result, brought her siblings, or her church members and her neighborhood kids like Amina Thomas, Kevin Jones, and Morgan Bell to Smilo Prep. Smilo Prep has also been a calm to a lot of our teachers and parents' storm. Jessica Gardner, she has 3 daughters at Smilo Prep. She lost her oldest daughter to leukemia last year. Here, one of our founding scholars. And it was this community that showed up for her. It was this community that packed out her service in Orange. And since then, she has said that Smilo Prep is her family, and Smilo Prep has saved her babies' lives. It's because of Smilo Prep that her other 2 daughters still here have a place that's more than a school, it's a family. Smilo Prep has been the fuel that ignited the beginning of a lot of our careers. When I think about Lysandra Coleman, she was just a substitute teacher 3 years ago. And now that substitute teacher is a 30-year math teacher here at Smilo, and now certified because of the certification boot camps and praxis resources that was funded solely by Republic schools to make sure that our certified teachers were able to live out their dreams as being certified teachers here in Mississippi. Smilo Prep has really been the full middle school experience. We heard our parents say that we wanted a full middle school experience. We brought National Honor Society, cheerleading, football, track, Beta Club, Student Government Association, choir, all these different things to give our kids that full middle school experience. So renewing Smilo Prep charter really means more than another school. It means we help more families to regain confidence in public school education. More light is shined on students who fade in the background. More storms are calmed through love, support, and compassion. But more than anything, more educators are equipped with the pathway to fulfilling their dream as certified Mississippi educators. So renewing Smilo Prep charter means more. Thank you.
Right, we'll have Ally next.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Allie Partial. I'm an assistant principal at Smilo Prep. And specifically over the last 3 years, I've worked with our literacy team and helped to run our reading intervention program. I wanted to start with my comments to just share with you a little bit about one of my favorite students I taught as a 5th grader and is now an 8th grader at our school. We'll call her Alexis. Alexis came into 5th grade into my science classroom at the beginning of 5th grade on a 2nd grade reading level. She got into a guided reading group, she got small group intervention, and by the beginning of 6th grade, she was on a 4th grade reading level. Tremendous growth. It was partly who she is. She works incredibly hard. She implements any feedback a teacher gives her, but it was also about what those teachers came every day ready to give her, which is exactly the reading intervention she needed to be successful in on grade level content. But she was still a 4th grade reader in 6th grade. And so on that state test, she did not score proficient on that state test. She was not proficient in 7th grade. We did not have a state test. And she is an 8th grader. And in 3 weeks, she will take that state test. And according to STAR data, she is on grade level, ready to be proficient on that state test. So in the last 4 years, her time with us through targeted reading intervention and strong instruction every day, through relationships and through love of her and her family, we have helped her go from a student who is far behind to a student who is ready to succeed on grade level content. That is the story of Alexis, but it is the story of Smilo. Let me say that again. It is the story of Smilo. So when I say students come here behind, I mean it. Our kids come 2 or 3 grade levels behind on average. We have the lowest reading network or data in our charter network, but we also have lower reading data than some of the schools around us. And by the end of 8th grade right now, 45% of our students are ready on grade level going into high school. That's huge for them. That's huge for us. And it's because of what we provide in terms of reading instruction. So Alexis is part of a cohort who in 6th grade, only 6% of them were proficient on the state test. But according to STAR data, Renaissance STAR, 45% of them are ready to be proficient on the state test in 2 years. We didn't have the opportunity to show our proficiency last year on the state test. We didn't have the opportunity to prove to y'all the kind of growth we've made, but we know we're gonna prove it this year. What I wanna say is the proficiency data 2 years ago says where we were, but it by no means says where our kids are going. We help kids grow. We are a school who take in kids who are behind and we ensure that they get every single thing they need every single day until they are ready to go to the high school, the college, to pursue the career of their choice. We do this through strong instruction and relationships. So we need time. We need the maximum amount of time to make sure that every kid like Alexis gets what they need to be on grade level moving forward. Thank you.
All right, Lindsay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt y'all. Out of abundance of caution to protect y'all's students' identity, can you please refrain from using the actual students' names? I think the principal did do that, but just out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure that their identities are protected. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Smith. I'm the principal of Smilo Prep Middle School. As a principal, I've made some challenging decisions this year, as I'm sure you have. In fact, I imagine determining how to make renewal decisions in the middle of a pandemic was a similar process to some of the processes that I've had to employ this year. I can remember one decision that relied heavily on equity. And the question was, my basis question was, does this allow our scholars with limited access to internet the same opportunity to content? And if the answer is no or was no, and they were penalized for something they couldn't control, then we didn't do it. And it was that simple. And as times got more complicated during the pandemic, so did decision-making for me. And I realized that. What I realized most was that my decision-making didn't have to be cut and dry, that I can consider individual students and adjust based on their needs. Another decision process caused me to think not just about those who didn't have access, but rather those that did have access and they continue to show up and perform better and better each day, and how I could effectively show them that the work that they did mattered. How could I show teachers that their teaching was not in vain? How could I show parents that their parenting that they were doing, the improvements that they were making from all of our phone calls was actually mattering? And the question was, do scholars get grades? And the answer for me became yes. And we appropriately addressed those individuals whose grades didn't adequately represent their effort due to circumstance. So it's based on what the students need in their circumstances. What I'm asking you today is to consider your process for deciding again. Though in the middle of a pandemic, our last 2 years, which we didn't have the state test for, have been some of our strongest years. And we have provided that data in our appeal paperwork. With high staff retention, high NWEA MAP data, low withdrawal numbers, low suspension rates, you'll see that not only have we worked hard and leveled up during a crisis and in the middle of a civil rights movement that directly impacts our staff and our scholars we serve, to address the concerns of this board from school year 18-19, which is my first full year as principal after taking over. But we have become one of the highest performing schools in our network. A joyful middle school where scholars are excited about achievement, and a school where parents are partners through ups and downs. And sure, you can wait until the next state test to realize that what I'm saying is true and what everyone else is saying is true, is that we're bomb. Or you can wait until the next batch of in-person data and when that rolls around, or you can take a look at all the well-analyzed data from really smart people provided to you that clearly show high performance and great gains, and trust the truth that you see now. My ask is that you, similar to my decision around grades, look at our data that we have produced beyond the state test and see that we've shown up and grant us a 5-year renewal. And finally, you may be asking, why is this woman fighting for one more year? They're likely approved for the 4-year renewal right now. And it's simple. If one of my scholars came to me and said, Mrs. Smith, I got into Georgetown, I would celebrate. That's the 23rd highest ranked university in the country. And then I'd say, but wasn't MIT your dream? And that's like the number 4, aligned with Yale. Wasn't that the college of your dreams? And even if they said, well, I got waitlisted, I'd say, well, let me get you a trip to MIT and let's get some meetings with the chief enrollment officer and we'll see about that. Because I believe in people shooting their shot. And they should always shoot their shot for the college of their choice. And I believe that I, as the principal of Smilow Prep, should shoot my shot for the renewal year that I want. And I believe we deserve. And so just like I tell them, I'm shooting my shot. A 4-year renewal, y'all, is really good and we appreciate it and thank you. But 5 years is what this team of parents and students and staff want and deserve. Thank you.
So I know that Ms. Bradley and Rankins and Ms. Rogers and Ms. Winfield tried really hard, but weren't able to join us. I think, and Ms. Gilbert had to step away, but I'm wondering if Ms. Thomas or Ms. Weathersby is on and able to speak.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm ready now. Okay, as a parent of a Smilow Prep graduate, my scholar, he came from a school where he had a target on his back, like anything he couldn't get in trouble for, he was getting in trouble for. And once he came to Smilow, I could see his joy for school beginning to dwindle. And once he came to Smilow, it was like an immediate change. He began to feel, seeing value and push. I could see him beginning to love school again and engage in learning. And I'm gonna just read his 8th grade paragraph. He said, this year has been like a roller coaster ride. Switching to Smilow Prep has opened many doors as far as continued education, networking, and growing my brand. While Smilow may have been a different learning environment, it was for the better. I will miss prep fun times like Fun Fridays. I will also miss getting out early on Wednesdays. Smilow Prep was a great experience and now has me college ready. Also, I just want to say that like I said, when he came here, he was like it was just like, "Ma, I'm just like really tired of everything and always getting in trouble." And you know, he was just kind of sitting in the back, really quiet. And his teachers was like, he doesn't say anything. And then when they gave him the outlet to say something, he was very outspoken and, you know, very engaging. And then they was like, wow, you know, he's amazing. And I just love that as a parent, that they saw beyond, you know, what everybody else was seeing, just, you know, a little black boy with dreads that was gonna get in trouble. And so that was just amazing to me. And I just love the family feel and the positive energy and attitude of all the teachers here.
Thank you, Ms. Weathersby. I don't believe Ms. Thomas or Ms. Gilbert are able to be with us. So I'll go ahead and jump in. Chairman Billingsley, members of the board, Director Karmachara, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Katie Poulos, and I'm here kind of speaking in two roles, one on behalf of Smilo Prep, and the other as an experienced charter school authorizer who believes that this work is some of the most important work being done in charter schools, in the public school space, and that is holding charter schools accountable and making positive and meaningful renewal decisions. Back in 2013, I was teaching in the Mississippi Delta. I was in Greenville, Mississippi, and I finished up my 2-year commitment with Teach for America, and I got a fellowship from NACSA, which Executive Director Karmachara has mentioned several times. And with that fellowship was placed in the Arizona State Board for Charter Schools, the statewide authorizer in Arizona, and very quickly transitioned from fellow to Director of Academic Accountability. And then from there, after a couple of years, I moved over and led the statewide charter school work at the New Mexico Public Education Department. And there I was responsible not only for acting as the executive director of the statewide authorizing board, much like you, but also administering our $22.5 million grant that we received under the CSP program. This work is in my heart. This work, I think, again, is some of the most important work that's being done in the country. And I am so glad to be able to speak to you a little bit about that. One thing that I want you to know off the bat is that I am an advocate for strong academic accountability for charter schools. In both New Mexico and in Arizona, it was under my watch and my boss's watches that the first schools were closed for poor academic performance. It takes courage to do that. I think what it also takes courage to do is to recognize and support our charter schools that are doing well, that are performing and meeting standards, that are meeting the purposes of the Charter School Act. And you'll see here that Smilo Prep has. You've heard that from our parents. You've heard that from our teachers. And I think, it's really important to listen to their words and know that Smilo Prep is doing those things. It is improving student learning. It's closing achievement gaps. It's increasing high quality educational opportunities. And it's providing our parents and the community expanded opportunities for involvement in our public schools. You've heard all of that from parents. I can't add too much more. I know you've also had the opportunity to read both the renewal report and the response, as well as the hearing request. Both of those provide an analysis of the school's academic performance and show you that they are excelling, that Smilo Prep is excelling in Jackson in comparison to the local community, and really meeting those needs. You heard from Ali Partial that it took 3 years for one of our students, 4 years for one of our students to go from the level she came into Smilo Prep to on grade level. It takes that time. And when you look at our academic data from our very first year, that was one class of scholars who were moving from 3 or 4 or 5 years below grade level up to 2 grade levels, up 1.5 grade levels, whatever that is, that we were moving them forward, but it didn't reflect where we were and what we were able to do because we'd only had those students for a year. And after our second year for our 5th and 6th grade class, we then had 2 classes that were mostly made up of students that were brand new to our academic program. It didn't reflect. And where you really started to see the impact that Smilo Prep was having was in that third year, when our grade got to the meets level, your meets level of a C. We know that in year 4, year 5, that data would have been a B or higher. We know that because we have the internal data. My time is running out, so I'll jump quickly to what I'm asking, which is I'm asking you to take into account the circumstances and the performance, the history. We know that this school is meeting the standards. We know that the school has continued down that path, and we ask that you give them the renewal that they have earned, that 5-year renewal. That is what the baseline renewal is in your charter school statute. It's 5 years. And we ask that you do that for this reason. If you do not, and if you grant the 4-year renewal, they are going to be back in a position where you are only looking at 3 years of data, because we are not going to have a long enough term to give you a full report of our performance. I really hope that you will take that into account and take into account that it's not their fault that they don't have those 4 years of data. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we appreciate everyone making the sacrifice to show up via Zoom meeting and give us your comments. We really appreciate it. And that, unless there are other comments from people who have shown up late, then that will close the public comment section. Let's move on to the new business action items. Action item A, Dr. Carmen Shira.
Flip over in my binder here. Okay. Thank you guys all for your comments. I do appreciate your comments and your time today. Moving on to new business, agenda item A is to consider the approval of the revised bylaws. You heard from the committee chair the considerations. You have in your packet the language, the recommended language, and you have a copy of the bylaws with that language inserted. I would simply ask that the board consider the approval of the bylaws as recommended by the committee.
All right, is there a motion to approve the bylaws as recommended?
Carolyn Willis, I so move.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any need for any discussion? Without further discussion, let's call the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries and the recommended the bylaws as recommended are approved. The revision is approved. Next, Dr. Carmen Shira.
Agenda item B is to consider the approval of the revised public comment request form. This is simply a formality to include the new language in the public request form that is posted on our website for access.
I make a motion that we accept that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Jean Cook.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. There is no opposed. The revised public comment request form is approved. Item C, Dr. Carmen Shira.
Thank you. Agenda item C is to consider the approval of Revive Prep, their modified charter application. In your packet, you have a copy of the timeline. You know that earlier approval that several months ago, and in 2018 they requested an extension. The second extension was requested in 2020. They submitted their application, the modified application, which was modified due to COVID, in 2021. And the application committee had an opportunity to review that. With some back and forth between myself and Ms. Polis, we have she has put together the application that includes several different changes, and those are all noted in your packet as well. So I would ask the board to consider this modified application for approval to open Revive Prep in 2022.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
I'll second that, Kimberly.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. There are no opposed. The motion carries and the Revive Prep modified charter application is approved.
Thank you. Agenda item D is, goes right along with the approval of the application, and that is to consider the approval of their charter contract, which you also have in your packet. And that would be simply to ensure that they have a contract, a current contract that represents their new enrollment and their location of their school. So I would ask the board to consider that approval.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to that effect?
I make a motion that we approve the charter contract.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 There is no opposition. The motion passes and the Revive Prep charter contract is approved. The revised approval. Next.
Thank you. Agenda item E is to consider the approval of a Revive Prep CSP subgrant application. You heard me earlier refer to the subgrantees under the CSP grant. With your approval, the Revive Prep will be eligible to access these dollars in their startup year. This is a 3-year grant. It totals $900,000. And so in year one, their startup during the 18-month period prior to opening school, they will have access to $300,000 through the CSP funds, which will provide them an opportunity to pay for some employment, some salaries, benefits, things like that prior to opening of school and access to dollars. So again, I would just ask the board to consider that subgrant application for approval.
All right. Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second, please?
Second, this is Jean Cook.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. There was no opposition. The motion passes and the Revive Prep CSP subgrant application is approved. Let's move on to item F. I'd like to take the lead on this for just a second. This is obviously a very important vote that we're about to make, and I would like to propose that we get a motion on the floor with a second before we start the discussion of how we feel like that we need to vote on this. So given that, is there a motion either way for the approval of the Joel Smilo Prep final renewal recommendation report?
I move that we accept the draft renewal report as final.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Jean Cook.
Thank you. Now we will have some discussion and everybody on the board will have an opportunity as they want to talk about this issue. Before we start the discussion, I would like to remind everyone of a couple of things that Dr. Carmen Chira has already talked to us about, but I want to make sure that we all understand. First of all, the applications committee is not required to accept the recommendation of the evaluators. The board is not required to accept the recommendation of the applications committee. We've worked awfully hard, and you've already heard today about the work that's continuing to try to put our framework in place and try to make our evaluations of our schools as fair and as quantitative as we can. We've got lots of share of stakeholder input, and everyone is getting a chance to help us decide how we're going to do this. But given that, we also have a portion of this decision that's going to require our individual personal judgment. It's not always cut and dried, and there's room for exceptions, and there's room for a lot of, like I said, individual judgment as to how we need to go forth on this important issue. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that that this is our decision to make. We've all read we all got the report, the draft report last month. We've read the we've read the input that we've gotten from Smilo, and we have also had an occasion to hear their input personally today. So we've got the information that we need to try to make a good decision. So I hope that everyone will consider everything that we've heard before you cast your vote. That said, Mrs. Willis, would you like to add anything to clarify from what to add to your report from earlier in the meeting?
So just looking at the annual performance framework, that is the basis by which I weigh in on the decision for conditional approval. I have not heard anything that would sway me, especially on those areas where there were deficiencies. And so it's from the framework that I am drawing my conclusion as to the conditional renewal for 4 years.
Does anyone else have any comments or any questions of Ms. Willis? Before I call the question, I would like to add my own comments as well. I think that this is one of the most important things that we do, and Katie touched on it during her public comment, that we've got to walk the finest line we can find between accountability and recruitment. We've got to be able to show people who would come into Mississippi and join us in this charter school environment that we have a good, responsive and supportive system in place for them. At the same time, we cannot have schools that once they're in place, we need those schools to succeed, because all of the eyes of the people who would like to see us fail are on us every day. So we have to be able to walk that fine line between keeping the schools to the standards that are in place that they've helped us develop, and being able to reward the schools for the good work that they've done, and to renew their contracts accordingly. I think, like I said, this is a tough call, but I think everyone has the information that they need. Without any further ado, if there's no other comment, I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote. I'm going to do this individually, if you all don't mind, so Jordan will be able to clearly and accurately record the vote for the minutes. Ms. Willis. Oh, also a yes vote means we accept the recommendation of the committee for a 4-year conditional renewal. A no vote will mean we don't accept that, and we will at that point discuss what the other options are. So Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Ms. Whittier?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Remack?
Yes.
Mr. Hinton?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. So the motion carries, and the Joel Smilo Prep final renewal recommendation is approved. The draft recommendation is approved. Dr. Carmen Shira, item G.
Thank you. Under item G, you have the consideration for approval for a hold harmless request from Midtown. Midtown is simply requesting that their conditions align to the timing and release of the state and federal accountability results. They are not asking for any additional time on their 3-year renewal, simply that that we allow them the opportunity to be judged when that data is released and not have it tied to their conditions right now. So I would ask the board to consider that that request from Midtown.
Is there a motion to approve the conditional renewal hold harmless request?
So moved.
And second,
I'll second that.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There was no opposition. The motion carries and the request is granted. Is Dr. Carmen Chira, I don't think there's any reason for us to go into executive session. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's, the next meeting is scheduled for June 14th. Do we have any idea about what our restrictions are going to be, or whether that will continue with the Zoom meetings, or are we going to try to, maybe by then, try to have an in-person meeting at the board office? I guess we just have to play it by ear, and everybody check your email. If it looks like we can have a meeting in person, I'd really like to do that. And I know you would too. Otherwise, we'll continue with the Zoom meetings like we've been doing since the pandemic started.
I would say that for information, if we have an in-person meeting and we have to, we can't do Zoom and in person at the same time. We're not set up for that. So what we would have to do is have you guys call in like you've done before. We have that call-in number that you can call in directly. So we could have in person and then we could have call in together. But we won't be able to manage Zoom. We just don't have the technology or staff to be able to do both at the same time. So
I think as Jordan, I think as long as you can poll the board members in advance and get the feeling of what we need to do, and then make sure that we're all up to date on what the current restrictions are for the state offices, then we'll be able to decide sometime between now and June 14th.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with if there's no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, board members, and thank you, guests.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.